Now, I know my last video was a Liverpool video as well, but I was having this conversation with a friend and we were talking about the best wingers that have ever played in the Premier League. And of course we spoke about your Ronaldos, your Giggs, your Perez's, your Beckhams, and I casually brought up Mohamed Salah, which he didn't agree with. Now, this is a sentiment I've actually heard by quite a lot of people. I've seen podcasts talk about this as well, but in my opinion, Mohamed Salah is the greatest winger to ever play in the Premier League, and here is why. Now, I understand it's a bit hard to put someone that still plays up there now with the great. The nostalgia doesn't kick in, and he is doing it for a lot of people's rivals teams, so obviously you're not going to root for him. It's very easy to look back at someone like Cristiano Ronaldo and be in awe of his work, as it was just so long ago and nostalgia hits in. Even someone like Eden Hazard, you could say, he was a brilliant on the ball specialist and one of the best dribblers that's ever played in the Premier League. But as an overall player, do I think he's better than Salah? No, I don't think it's even close. And some of his inconsistent seasons completely get forget about. But this is because time sets in and people look back on things in a very different light to in the time. Eden Hazard used to annoy me when he always scored against Arsenal and did great performances against us, but in hindsight he was a brilliant player to watch in the Premier League and was a brilliant advertisement for the league. And because Salah isn't as flashy, or maybe is not as interesting and he's a bit more grounded and just scores the goals, it's not very interesting and people don't rate that highly. But I don't think that's very fair. When Luis Suarez came into the league and scored as many goals as he did in that short period, everyone was unbelievable how many goals he was actually scoring, because not many players even hit over 30 goals back then. But Salah, who never got given a chance at Chelsea and had to go out on loan and into the Serie A to really prove himself in a different league, found himself as a winger coming into the Premier League for Liverpool for just around 35 mil and scoring 32 goals, breaking the goal record at the time. Now, this is crazy because he was also a winger, even though he is an inside forward and is very much forward in the team. And it did help. Eventually he got Liverpool a league title from his consistent amount of goals. I mean, in the last few seasons he scored 22 league goals, 19, 22, 23, 19 and 10 already this season. As much as there is penalties in there, he's now scored 199 goals for Liverpool in all competitions and consistently gets over 30 in the last 3 seasons, also scoring over 40 in his first season. And to me, I've never seen a winger this consistent at scoring in the biggest league in the world ever. He consistently does it per season. He is consistently Liverpool's most clinical and best player every year. And when scoring is the hardest thing to do in football, he makes it look so easy. I think people take for granted this because people like Haaland have come into the league and scored loads of goals in his first year and have scored loads of goals this season. But Salah's been doing it for time. He's been doing it for 6 years now. And not only being a consistent output from goal scoring, he's also a consistent output from assists. I mean, this season he already has 6 assists for Liverpool. He's one of the top assisters in the league. He has consistently been Liverpool's best player and one of the best periods for the club since the 80s and 70s. And he has brought every single trophy to Liverpool. He's won everything in England he could possibly have, which a lot of players could not say the same. He's also consistently stuck with the team, and he's also been there for all the rebuilds. I mean, last year and this year they've definitely been a much more transformative team, and he's still there being the main man every week. I still consistently would expect him to score more than any other player in that team, and I don't think he gets any credit for it. It's almost got boring seeing the goals that he scored, while Haaland scoring is still fun for a lot of people. I think there are so many wingers in the Premier League that you can say individually talent has more than Salah. I think Bale was probably more talented. I think Ronaldo was probably more talented. I think Hazard was. However, if we're talking impact for your club and actual impact on the league and also just consistency, then I definitely think Salah is way above all of them. He might not have the actual individual ability better than them, but he's definitely performed better when it matters. And he is much older now, but he's still performing. And I think one of the big things about Salah is that even when he's not playing well, he still manages to score or assist per game, a bit like what Saka is doing for Arsenal, slowly getting there. And although people put this against him because he isn't playing well in every single game, this should be seen as a great thing, as he's still contributing to the team even when he's not playing very well, because he knows what positions to be in and he's just that good at going forward. The same arguments can't be made for certain players, such as Eden Hazard. He didn't turn up when they weren't good enough. That season where they come mid-table, he was awful and he scored a few league goals. And I think Ronaldo would have reached this level if he had stayed in the Premier League longer. Obviously he got 31 goals, and in 2008 that was crazy at the time for the winger and who he was, and he was so young. And the next season he got 18, which is still a very respectable amount, but obviously then he left. So in my opinion, in the Premier League, if we're talking fact to fact, I think Salah was more impactful and probably a better player overall. And I think this longevity helps him stand out over other people. I mean, obviously Giggs had a brilliant longevity and was so good and scored a few goals and got a lot of assists. And although it was a different game, Giggs never hit this sort of level that Salah is hitting consistently every time. He was in a very, very good team. Salah came into a Liverpool team that was definitely building, and he basically made them one of the best teams in the world for 5 to 6 years. Nothing against Giggs, he's a brilliant player and was definitely a longevity monster, being so good in the Premier League for over a decade. But Salah is just another level in my opinion. And in 233 appearances, Salah has 147 67 goals and 65 Premier League assists, and I just don't think you're going to see people hit that sort of stats anytime soon. You might see the goals scored by Haaland, but he won't get them assist numbers, and I don't think you're going to see an out-and-out winger ever do that in the Premier League again. And people always seem to bring up the Salah individually quality isn't very good, thinking he just scores tap-ins. I mean, the first few years at Liverpool, he never scored tap-ins. They were always brilliant goals. He was such a deadly player from cutting in from that right-hand side, and if a defender got too tight with him, it'd always turn them and score. It became inevitable, and it still is nowadays. He just gets marked a lot more out of the gate. And the approach of always having a winger inside the box or making sure he helps with the build-up play. And if you just look through the catalogue of Salah's sensational goals for Liverpool, then you'll realise that he's actually scored so many worldies, and he still does it to this season now. He's 31 years old and he's still worth a tremendous amount of money to Liverpool, and they still didn't want to sell him for 150 mil this summer. Salah has shown exceptional pace, dribbling and goal scoring in his whole career. He is also famous for using exceptional balance, agility and close control to beat several defenders en route to the goal. This is something that Lionel Messi has, but when it's Salah, he seems to not get much credit. And while this opinion is purely Premier League based, what he's done for Egypt can also not be underlooked. He has taken that nation to many levels that have never been in so long. They hadn't qualified for World Cup in so many years until he came along and qualified for them and scored in the World Cup for them. And his impact on culture outside the UK cannot be unnoticed. He has done so much for the Egypt nation and they all love him over there. And I think he has really cemented himself as the best African player of all time. I think when his Premier League career is over and hindsight sets in, people are going to be really missing Mohamed Salah. I think people are going to start to realise how good he actually was in this league. A bit like Eden Hazard now after he's retired. And Liverpool will definitely miss him as he's one of the best players that's ever played for their club. If you look in the top Premier League goal scorer list, he's actually 11th already with 149 goals, just one behind legend Michael Owen. And he easily could go up to 8th in that list before the end of the season if he does move to Saudi with 1 year left on his deal. And I think then people will start to realise that he's actually a legend. People like Sadio Mane next to him were a brilliant player, and then maybe in 1 or 2 of them years were actually better than Salah. I think that's fair enough. But now he's left and you still see Salah scoring all these goals, and it's not worked for Mane in other places. Now he's in Saudi. I think adds weight to the Mohamed Salah argument that he is actually the best winger of all time. And this is just Premier League based in the Premier League. I think there's arguments to make that Cristiano Ronaldo has probably done way more in his career and done way better consistency and been way better at the top level in all competitions and in different leagues. But in my opinion, Mohamed Salah in the Premier League will never be beaten, or at least for a very long time. He changed what it meant to be a winger in the Premier League, and he also changed what the goalpost was of being good. Back in the day, 6 or 7 goals from a winger would be a pretty decent season. Now, if you're not scoring like at 14, it's not even that considered that good for the top teams in the Premier League, let alone the amount of assists he's got and the amount of impact he's had on that Liverpool team and culture as a place in itself. There's definitely arguments for so many great players to be the best winger of all time. Who do you think is the best winger in the Premier League, and who was the best player that you ever watched step foot against your team or maybe for your team? Let me know if you don't agree with me, and please like and subscribe for any more content on this channel. Thank you.